Hi, good morning. I'm going to start with Proverbs 16:9. In his heart a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps. Planning my own course has been something I've always tried to do, and putting control of my life in God's hands has been the biggest struggle up in my life at this point. As long as I can remember, I had to decide for myself what was going to happen next in my life. Even dating back to elementary school, where I would tell my dad the night before what cereal I wanted to eat for breakfast. Maybe planning my breakfast choice the night before may not have been anything to worry about, but when it comes to planning out my future and expecting it to go exactly as planned is where I kept running into an issue. As mentioned earlier, I am 17 and I'm a freshman at Ball State. I actually just finished up my first semester on Thursday, so that was pretty exciting. I also mentioned that I should be a senior at Noblesville High School, but instead of finishing in May, I finished up in December and I started at Ball State in January. I was pretty ambiguous with my plans. I felt very passionate about going to college early and becoming a nurse. I planned on everything being perfect, and I had planned in my head how wonderful this new experience would be. Maybe I should have seen all the many trials I was about to face once I approached my first day of college. On my first day, the weather was terrible. It was -degree weather and it was snowing. I parked on the wrong end of campus in the wrong parking garage, and of course I got lost. As I was trying to find the building where my first class was, a professor had walked by me and said something about it being cold. It kind of caught me off guard, and I turned around, and of course I slipped and fell on ice. So I laughed at myself, and I thought only I could accomplish something like that, but boy did I not see any more mishaps coming. I jumped into a completely new atmosphere where I knew practically no one. I had no idea how to properly regulate my time, and I was trying to balance classes with schoolwork, my job, and figure out how to maintain my relationships with my friends and family. With nursing school, some of the courses that are required are fairly difficult. In this semester, I took an organic chemistry course that was a 5-credit-hour class. I had no idea the workload that followed suit with this, and this class really tested my thoughts on becoming a nurse. At times, I felt this would be the class that would stop me from pursuing a nursing degree. I also struggled with the fact that I was commuting to classes. I would wake up at 5 a.m. and leave my house at 6:30 a.m. to make it to school for my 8 a.m. class. I was also working 4 days a week, and with everything combined, emotional breakdowns for me became a normal thing. After a few months had passed, I finally started to get the grip of things, and I felt a little bit more confident with everything. But I think deep down I was feeling resentful that my semester did not go as easy as planned. At this point, I felt completely out of control in my life, and I was very afraid of my future. It was not until Janelle asked me to speak on this Sunday that I started to realize the issue I was having. At first, I declined the position, but day after day I kept thinking about it. I was at a loss what I would even say. I had only seen my first semester of college as a horrible time in my life where I had no idea what I was doing. My mom had asked me if I was going to speak on Youth Sunday, and I said no. What am I going to do? Tell everyone that I'm crazy for starting college early and that it's absolutely difficult? Do I say that no matter what I've done, God's knocked down any plans I've made? I just don't feel I have anything inspirational to share. And then my mother asked me, but what did you really learn this semester? It was then when I finally said it aloud that I realized what a wonderful lesson I had learned this semester. I said, I learned that no matter how hard I try and no matter how much planning or daydreaming of how my life will plan out, God will always be the one in control. I had plans of having a very easy semester, but God showed me that that was not the plans He had for me. He used this time in my life as a growing opportunity for my faith and as an opportunity to become a stronger person. And now I've learned that it's very important to give God your complete trust and open your eyes and ears to what He has to say to you. No matter what, He will always give me strength to make it through any trials He faces against me. As written in Psalm 56:3, when I am afraid, I will put my trust in you. In Philippians 4:13, I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. And it's through these words that I can find peace in placing my path in God's hands. I know that I can trust that He will give me strength to face anything He places in front of me. And with each new trial, I'll be able to strengthen my walk with the Lord. With this next semester in the fall, I'll be able to continue school to become a nurse with even more drive and passion to serve the Lord, because this time, I'll no longer be afraid that I do not have control over my life. Instead, I can live in happiness because I know I can trust it all in His hands. Thank you.
Next job yet, pretty? Study business. A fun fact about me is that I'm obsessed with 19 Kids and Counting. I'm excited to follow my big sister's footsteps and speak today at Youth Sunday. Look, Mom, I'm on TV!
Yeah, they didn't warn me that we were going to be filming that. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Like I said, I'm Katie Moss. So let me just give you a little background about myself. I was born in Noblesville, lived here all my life. I grew up coming to this church whenever I could. And I was baptized here on the stage, actually, when I was a little kid with my dad and my sister, and my mom was baptized here when she was a baby. So I always considered myself a Christian. And I went through confirmation, I was confirmed, I went to youth group, I went to Sunday school. I was a good kid. I followed the rules, listened to my parents, so I was good, right? Well, when I was a freshman, I started going to Young Life, which is a non-denominational Christian youth group. After my sophomore year, I had the opportunity to go to Young Life camp in Georgia. The way camp worked, we had activities all throughout the day, and then we had a lesson from a speaker at night, and we would go back to our cabins to talk about it in our small group. So the week started out with all this stuff I'd already heard. God loves you, Jesus died for you. But then the week went on, and we talked about being all in our relationship with God. So I'd never really heard this before, but we had to put our relationship first and actually give an effort. Now, if you had a friend and you only talked to them for an hour a week, would that be a good friendship, or would that just be so-so? Well, this is what I always did in my relationship with God. So I would say that I really didn't have a strong relationship with Him, but I didn't know any better. Well, if you had a friend who you talked to every day and you spent time with them, that would be a good friendship, right? So if I spent time every day with God, I would have a strong relationship with Him. I never really thought about it like that before. I thought that my weekly efforts were enough. But just like in John 5, when Jesus called the leper to take up his mat and walk, this was His way of calling me to have a true relationship with Him. Romans 6:8 says, "Now if we died with Christ, we believe that we will also live with Him." This is what Jesus was calling me to do. He wanted me to live my life with Him. So in order to be all in my relationship with Him, I made sure to make a conscious effort every day to spend time with Him. I also was given a prayer journal from my mom and used that every day alongside devotions. And this time that I spent with God grew my relationship with Him immensely. Through this time, I felt God calling me to share His love with others. So I became a student leader at Wildlife this year, which is a middle school youth group. I believe that God calls everyone in different ways. So I challenge all of you to figure out what God is calling you to do and follow that calling. As you try to decide what's next for you, spend time with God and He will lead you in the right direction.
My name is Emily Peterson, and I'm a senior at Noblesville High School. Next year, I plan on going to Ball State Honors College to study political science. A fun fact about me is that I have an entire Pinterest board devoted to Josh Hutcherson, and today I'm looking forward to blowing your minds with some Jesus knowledge.
Yeah, Tom's new favorite thing is impromptu videos, so stuff like that happens a lot. So I'm just gonna warn you, I was up really late last night at prom, so might not go so smooth, but I'll try my best. This week we're talking about what's next. To me, this is the question we ask ourselves when we feel God calling us to do something, but we're not sure how to accomplish this task He's placed before us. I think we can all relate to this. I know I can. Ever since I was a freshman, I felt God calling me to speak at Youth Sunday. But as any of the pastors can tell you, writing a sermon is not easy. You have to research verses and make sure they fit with what you're trying to tell people and make sure you don't use them wrong. Today I'm going to use my struggles writing this sermon to teach you about what to do next. To me, the hardest part is recognizing when God has placed something in your heart. Not because it's hard to identify, but oftentimes it's not the easiest thing to do. We typically feel underqualified or unprepared to carry out God's tasks. This definitely applies to me writing this. My saving grace through this, besides the Bible, was my favorite book, Love Does by Bob Goff. Bob shows us that we don't have to be qualified to be used by God. One of my favorite quotes from the book is, God usually chooses ordinary people like us to get things done. We also see that God has given us works to do in Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God has prepared us in advance for us to do. Even though we may feel unqualified to carry out what God has asked us to do, he reminds us time and time again that he has created us uniquely to each serve a unique purpose. In addition to feeling underqualified, we also struggle with not being able to see the end goal. Most of the time, God calls us to do stuff that's outside of our comfort zone. We can't see where this new journey will lead us, and that's where we get stuck. But God's got that covered too. Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not rely on your own understanding." Bob also writes, "You don't need a plan, you just need to be present." God doesn't want us to plan out everything in advance because then we wouldn't be doing his works, we'd be doing our own. In Praise Band today we sang, "Spirit lead me where my trust is without borders." That phrase has really stuck with me. It's a call to God to take control of any situation and lead us into new territories. So no matter how frustrating it may be that we can't see the whole plan that God has set out before us, we have to trust that God's plan is bigger than something we can ever see. So I encourage each and every one of you to let God guide you in a new direction he's leading you. Sometimes, no, all the time, God asks you to do things that's outside of your comfort zone, such as starting college early or going all in with your faith. Most of the time, he also doesn't reveal to us his whole plan. When we let God control the situation, amazing things can happen. He gives us strength to conquer the most difficult situations, like this sermon. Thank you.